Hello, everybody. Grab a drink, grab some popcorn. It is time for the Witches Movie Coven. Yes, where witches talk about witches in movies and witch movies and witchy movies. I am Patti Negri, one of your hosts for today. And let me introduce you to my co hosts. We have Richard-Lael Lillard, we have Courtney Buckley, we have Heather Greene, and we have Jason Mankey. I will let everybody say hi. I just want to tell everybody before I pass it on to everybody else, I just got home from the happiest place on earth. Yes, indeed, Disneyland. And actually, going on a weekday when it's cold in Southern California is such a nice way to do Disneyland. You could actually get on rides. But I was there for my best friend Sebastian, or you may know him as Father Sebastian, his 480th birthday. So we celebrated there because that's what vampires do for their 480th is you go to Disneyland. So I just wanted to say that. So I'm bringing a little of that Disney magic to everyone. And I did want to tell everyone, I'll say it again at the end, that I'm so thrilled. I'm going to be on Coast to Coast tonight with George Norrie. Yes, the one and only. And I'm getting 3 hours out of George, which is practically unheard of. So I'm going to be on with him from 11 p.m. until 2 a.m. Pacific time, which means 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. Eastern time and everywhere else in the middle. So stay up or get a nap before then. Enjoy to be with Nord. You guys can call in. We could have listeners, and I would love to see you guys there. So now it's enough about me. Richard-Lael, say hi.
Hi. Hello. Yes. So that sounds amazing. I love that you are on George Norrie. I'm impressed. I don't get impressed easily, but I'm impressed. Congratulations. I've never been to Disneyland, but also I know I've never been to Disney. But it's because I'm a little bit of a recluse. Even when I lived in LA, I think I think the maddening crowds, and then it's Disney, and I think that would go against my macabre look, I think.
Actually, it really wouldn't. I was there with a bunch of vamp people. They look so macabre. Everything like Haunted Mansion-y stuff is very macabre. They had bats and this and that and evil Mickey things. And well, they didn't have 666, but they had 999. Disney version. So not a little more macabre than you would think. Okay. Courtney, hi.
Hi, that's me. I also have never been to Disney and I feel very jealous and want to live vicariously through you. And I may be staying up till 2 in the morning. I'm going to try to hear you on Coast to Coast. That's very exciting.
Okay.
Did you guys know, I'm sure you all did, but Friday the 13th was this past Friday. Does anybody celebrate Friday the 13th? I did. You want to know how? I got a Black Phillip tattoo. I don't know if you can see him up there. He's still healing, but that's how I celebrate. I also got, I don't know if you can see him. Hold on. A little voodoo doll tattoo right there. So yeah, that's my exciting news for the week. I got tattoos.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I did not do that on Friday the 13th. All right, Jason, how can you top that? Or just say hi or what's going on with you?
On Friday the 13th, I was in the French Quarter in New Orleans where I stayed for 5 days, I think. I don't know. Like when you're in the French Quarter in New Orleans, everything sort of blends together because of the absinthe and the rum and everything else. So I think I was there for 5 days and I went on a swamp tour, which was amazing. I got to see an alligator in the water. It was very cold though, so it didn't move very much. And for all I know, it could have been dead. It was that kind of morning. The coldest morning I've ever spent in my life. And I've been to Loch Ness and to Alaska, and Louisiana somehow topped it. But it was a great weekend. I sent our producer Rob some pictures of New Orleans. Maybe we'll get to them or maybe we won't. It's hard to say.
Okay, well, thank you and welcome back. And your beautiful blonde curly locks are extra special today, since he's our hair guy. And last but not least, I do believe our high priestess of all things witch movies, Heather Greene. Hey, Heather.
Hi, I'm so happy to be back. I missed last week, and I have to share why I missed last week. It wasn't just because I didn't want to be here with my witchy movie Coven, but I was actually going. I went to see Hadestown, the musical that won all the Tonys, and so I'm wearing my shirt. The lady The Lady of the Underground. There it is. So I am so excited. It was a fantastic show. If you have a chance to see it, it's touring. It's on Broadway. The music is phenomenal. The storytelling and what they do is so creative. So that is why I was not here last week. I was having a maybe we'll talk about Broadway magic one day, I hope, because I do love a little Broadway magic. But I'm happy to be back and talk about what are we talking about this week, Patti?
The Skeleton Key. The Skeleton Key. Do you want to start off? Is that something from your beautiful book, or?
Well, yes and no. So yeah, sure. I can start off. So Skeleton Key was not in my book specifically because it is uniquely representing magic as hoodoo. And so I did not specifically talk about hoodoo and voodoo directly or as in depth. I mention it and when it's adjacent to witchcraft, and I talk about why in the beginning of the introduction. So if you're questioning why didn't I, because what's the difference? I do address that right at the beginning. And just briefly, I believe that an entire book needs to be written on Hollywood's representation of voodoo and hoodoo. And I could not do it justice. My book would have been double the size if I had done it. So I decided to draw delineation because voodoo is a specific religion. Hoodoo is a specific practice. And so I like to make some delineations and lines between them. So I talk about that in the book, but I do mention othering throughout the book and touch on the use of voodoo and hoodoo as a Hollywood's very terrible representation of what voodoo and hoodoo and that type of magic is. And Skeleton Key falls in that boundary. But I will say that this is a 2005 movie. And yes, they do, which is unusual for Hollywood, make a very clear distinction between voodoo and hoodoo. And I did like to see that. And I did like to see some of the other representations. But again, this is not the same thing. And so I didn't wind up in my book. But there's a long history of Hollywood representing voodoo in not so great ways. But they've been doing it since the beginning. So there's my little history.
Okay, thank you very much.
I won't say more yet.
All right, so who wants to go first? Anybody raise your hand? Richard-Lael.
I will go. You know, I'd never seen this movie, and I really enjoyed it. Though I have to admit, from the very beginning, I wanted her to die. She was so young and dumb and lost. And I also, I know it's a very modern world. And I mean, 2005 is, that's nearly 20 years ago, but it was still very modern. But she was sort of going to the club and listening to modern music. And I just thought, why won't you die? I hope.
That's awesome.
But I did really enjoy it. It's one of those films where I will go back and watch it again, just because I do want to see more of it. Sometimes I get a little bit distracted by pretty things in the house. And this one is such a character in and of itself. And that I really, truly love. Also, when we talk about magic, I'll talk a little bit more about what they do too. But overall, I enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you. Courtney.
That's me again. So I thought that I had seen this movie before. But now looking at like when it came out, I think I was in basic training for the Air Force when it came out, and that's how I missed it because I have no recollection of it. I just watched it today. I really liked it. I feel like it's one of those movies where I definitely could see the end coming. Like I knew what was going to happen before it happened, but I wasn't mad about it. I really liked the way it ended, and I'm a stickler. I'm a stickler for an ending. An ending can make or break a movie for me. I also feel like there was really good like sense of like heightened anxiety throughout the movie, which I think it's really good when a movie makes you feel something. also maybe a little bit of PTSD because I feel like I've been in an attic or two like that on Scared and Alone. So one in particular comes to mind, Richard-Lael, I think you were there.
Yes, I was there.
So
I was
I
told you to recite the Lord's Prayer backwards.
Oh, that one too. I didn't even think of that one.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I was thinking more of Burn Bray with all the things hanging and like. So when she was moving through the room and like I was like, don't touch it! Oh my god, don't touch it! Oh my like so I think, but that was just like my own personal feelings. So yeah, I mean I liked it a lot and I was a little freaked out and I would definitely watch it again.
Okay. Who wants to go next? Jason?
I love this movie. I saw it in the theaters when it first came out. I was really excited to see it. My wife went with me because she loved Kate Hudson so much in Almost Famous. And I really love this movie because the magic, it's not really 100% authentic, but it's a lot closer than a lot of other things have shown over the years, like when they're using the brick dust and other things. And I was like, damn, I know what that is. And I thought that was really cool. There's a great sort of sense of menace in the film, and there's a really heightened anticipation about what's to come. And the soundtrack to the movie is also really good. Not so much the orchestral score, but the blues tunes that they choose to use in the movies. There's some Robert Johnson in there. And then the piece of music that just kind of creeped me out a whole lot when I first saw it was The Conjure of Sacrifice, which is what kind of makes the whole switch at the end of the movie happen. And it's really well recorded, and it does kind of make the hairs on the back of your neck stand out. I immediately ran out and bought the soundtrack and would stay up late listening to it, especially that one song, just so I could like channel in early Courtney or something, being scared and alone in my attic room. I think this is a great movie. The performances are good, and as Richard-Lael says too, the mansion is its own character. It's like seeing the House of Secrets or the House of Mysteries from the comic books, like right there in a Louisiana swamp. Fantastic film.
Thank you. Heather.
My opinion, I thought it was a fun movie. I think they did a great job at of honing the craft of the horror. There were jump moments. It was not the scariest movie I've ever seen. I think part of that is because I've been desensitized to magical horror movies, and most of them don't scare me at all. And that's because I've watched so many just for my research and everything. But the house was set up as a character right from the beginning. You know, you won't understand my house. You won't get my house. It was gorgeous. I think they relied a lot on Southern tropes and in the creation of this. So you already had a sense that what was going to happen, the mystique, the mystic. So I think it was fun. I think it was rich. And I think they hit the horror points. So it works really well as a horror. I think it would have been a nice story, ho-hum, if it wasn't for the twist at the end. I think the twist at the end is what made it stand out, because for me, it was like, oh, this is nice. Yeah, this is going on. And it kind of moves through the story, lilts through the story, very much like it feels like the Southern style, the way it lilts through the story. And then when it gets to the end, that twist is what really makes the movie stand out. So I think it was enjoyable. I don't think this is my favorite horror movie in the world, but my favorite horror movie we can get to another time. It's probably you guys
know. I'm dying to know.
Pumpkinhead, but we can get to that another time.
Okay.
Pumpkinhead from the 80s is my favorite horror movie, but we'll talk about that another day. But this one I think was nice. It was really nice, and I think the tone matches where it's from. I think it matches the story. So they did a really nice job. I think it got a bad rap. I think they didn't like it when it came out. A lot of people didn't like it, but I think it's a nice horror movie.
Yeah.
I got a question for everybody. Like I was surprised by the twist at the end, and in retrospect, I should not be. And I always feel like even a movie that's 20 years old, you don't want to spoil anything because everyone's so sensitive of that. But did you see the twists coming, or were you surprised by them?
I did.
I saw it coming too.
I was surprised. I was surprised. I loved it. I didn't, when we were talking about it last week, I didn't remember it. Then when I watched the trailer a couple days ago, I go, oh, I did see this movie. But I think the first time I saw it was like late at night, and I didn't remember a lot, but I remembered the twist. But it certainly didn't catch. It took me by surprise, but I loved it too. I went there with it. Even the heat, that Louisiana heat, that New Orleans, you just felt hot and sweaty, which I don't usually. I'm for the girl who's always cold and wearing 14 coats right now. It was like, oh yeah, that smothering heat. It just all played together for me, and it was scary. It was a typical Patti when I watch it 2 a.m. under the covers, under a tent, with my cell phone, all by myself. That's my scary movie way to do things these days. And I enjoyed it. Didn't even think of falling asleep once.
Yeah, I have to say that I saw the twist. I saw their, not the exact twist. I think the way that they did it was surprising, but I could tell where the ending was going. So I think like it was satisfying. Like it wasn't surprising, but it was satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Which is unusual, and I don't want to know if I want to say too much, because we would give away the ending, which kind of, like I said, makes the movie. But there's like a bigger twist, and then there's the twist at the end is very unusual for Hollywood, the way they ended it, and that is what I liked. I not to say, what Richard-Lael said earlier on. I think the ending made the movie stand out. If they had ended it in a different way, in a more typical way, it would have been like, oh, okay, good few jump scares, nice, let's move on, and we could forget about it. But I like that unusual ending. That made it so much better. I will remember that.
I'm such a stickler for endings. Like I said, endings will make or break a movie for, like, in a visceral way. I cannot enjoy an M. Night Shyamalan movie because I feel like every time I'm disappointed by the ending. And like the trailers look great and I regret seeing them. But this ending was like, even though I saw it, it was good. I really liked it.
You didn't like I See Dead People?
Nope. I cannot stand. I've been on the radio. I've called into a radio show specifically to talk about how much I cannot deal with an M. Night Shyamalan movie because they ruin it ruins everything for me.
Well, I think with M. Night Shyamalan too, you're like waiting for the twist, so you watch the whole movie trying to see if you're going to figure out exactly when the twist happens. And in this film, I don't think there's that expectation that's necessarily set up, so you can just sort of sit back and see what unfolds.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, it's like other movies try to do a twist or try to do an ending or try to do whatever, and either I don't like when like there's a monster and they show the monster and the monster's stupid looking, or because like that anticipation the whole time is scarier than when you put a CGI monster in front of the audience, or all those things. And I think with this movie, it was executed perfectly, and in my opinion, at least, executed perfectly to the point that I could not find fault with the ending. I just enjoyed it.
I'm not going to spoil it, but I will say the ritual, I went, oh,
yeah.
I know. In my own magical practice, Patti, you were with me in seances in Pasadena.
Mm-hmm.
And so remember the tower room that had all of those mirrors, and mirrors are a portal. And so I would purposely, not only was the shape an octagon, but I had mirrors on all of the walls and they reflected all of the portals. And it would get to the point where it would, that tower alone would shake like there was an earthquake. There would be no earthquake. It would get to the point where the mirrors would just start shaking on the walls. So the mirror magic, I absolutely think they got that right. And part of the plot twists in the film that I will give away that doesn't give away anything is that there are no mirrors allowed in the house for a reason.
I wish there was no mirrors allowed in my house, because I feel like how I feel about those, about the same way as I feel about dolls.
Oh, but you have a doll, so there you go.
I have a not a doll, Patti.
You have a not a doll.
Doll.
Not a doll.
It even
Courtney
has its
has
own
a
doll.
lovely seasonal decoration that
Thank you,
she keeps
Jason.
close to her. Yeah.
Doll.
Jason, we're best friends. Thank you.
Okay, so
You're my only ally.
all right, well, let's talk about. Good.
I was going to say an interesting part about this movie, and I always have to bring up a little history for y'all, is this movie is 2005. So if we're talking about witch movies, you're talking about occult movies. This was the period of time when paranormal movies were really hot, and that's began really with the Blair Witch Project, and then just took off, and you had a huge series of paranormal-esque something linked. So this movie really starts out like a lot of those movies. It starts out like a haunted house movie. That's how it's presented, and that's how the house comes into play. And so it fits that period of time. It also fits in the period of time where Hollywood and the television producers and writers were trying to bring in more and more real witchcraft, more hoodoo, more real stuff. They weren't hitting it the way they are now, but they were in the 2000s, they were doing it more and more and more consistently. So I wouldn't be surprised if this movie had really tried to make an effort. They obviously did. They talked about hoodoo and voodoo, and they separated those out very clearly, which I was surprised when that had, because I rarely hear that in movies. So this was the beginning of that, which was nice to see. But it also was, I don't know how many paranormal movies you guys have watched from that era, but they were just back to back to back paranormal until we hit zombies and vampires. Vampires first and then zombies, or was it zombies and vampire? I don't remember. This was the ghost season.
I think it was vampires and then zombies.
Vampires and then zombies. Okay.
Ah,
Hard to
that's
keep track.
There's like a great piece of magical advice though at the end of this movie, and that's one of the other reasons I think I like it so much. The two of the, I wouldn't say main characters, but they're really the antagonists of the film. One of them says it's getting harder and harder to make these people believe in magic every year or every few decades or whatever it is. And the idea is that, like, for magic to work, you need people to have belief in it. And I'm not sure that's exactly right, but I know as someone who practices magic, it works better when you believe the magic is going to work.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I just love that. Somebody did a little bit of research and they at least got that little part right.
Yeah,
And in the
I
end,
love
she
that.
did believe.
Yeah. So speaking of that, getting over to the magic part, let's talk the magic. Let's talk the witchcraft or hoodoo, what it is. I mean, I loved it. Though I must say, there was more brick dust in 1 foot than I've ever used in my entire life. I do use brick dust, but that was a lot of brick dust. I don't know if that's normal practice or that's, the difference in hoodoo and the craft the way I practice it. So what do you guys think of the magic?
I liked it.
As I said before, I thought it was mostly on the mark. Somebody at least read a book somewhere. Having read about hoodoo at that time, the things that she was doing, the Kate Hudson character, looked familiar. The things that were happening to her felt like these are things that people who practice hoodoo would do, perhaps. So yeah, it's certainly more, I think, probably authentic than maybe the magic we see in the craft. So I'm gonna give it that.
Can I just touch on a comment that's up there from Corey Parson? They said this movie is part of the reasons why I make up my own spells and don't follow pre-written spells. I have to say that's the part that kind of spoke to me too, where it seemed like, especially in that scene where I know she's following the thing, but she's running up the stairs and drawing the circle and the chalk, and it's like magic out of desperation. And I feel like that's what kind of witch I am, where it's like, oh, I need a spell real quick, and I just dig whatever I got, like whatever it is, and I'm just gonna make it. And then it's that magic of desperation that, like, whether it's not life or death for me usually, but like that kind of that spoke to my witchcraft, my practice.
I like that magic of desperation, which is not the way you usually should step into it as a rule. But you do have to believe. You do have to believe. I think that's 100% true. Not that it can't affect you if you don't believe, but if you're sitting there doing magic, that's my practice.
I think there definitely were elements that were, they did research, they read a book. I'm not sure how much. I'm not familiar if the rituals, the hoodoo ritual that she was doing at the end, how authentic that was, or the symbols that were on stuff. There were various symbols on different things. the elements that they had within it were very stereotypical of what Hollywood would use for hoodoo. This what would trigger and cue the audience in saying this is hoodoo. And it would also cue them to say this is something that is spooky. So there's a combination. That many candles, there must have been 400 candles in that circle.
If you're living in an old house with all of those candles, it's a wooden house.
Yeah.
It's a good thing it was raining.
Yeah. So there's some things I think that Hollywood obviously always, and they do it with all kinds of magical and occult movies and when they do rituals. So I think that there's elements that you had that were very stereotypical. They're very much tropes of the hoodoo voodoo movie. And especially with the I can't say what the ending is because we're trying to avoid that. But with the twist and the magic that the two main characters are doing, that's also very reminiscent of how voodoo and hoodoo is represented, because hoodoo and voodoo are often linked in Hollywood to zombies and to body switching and to prolonging life. Like the movie The Spell, which is a more recent version of it that doesn't take place in New Orleans. It takes place in Appalachian Mountains, I believe. So you have that same sort of stuff going on. So there's a lot of, I question whether they were reading books or if they were taking their cues from past Hollywood movies, is what I'm saying. So there's some authenticity to it, but at the same time, a lot of it's so rote, so typical of what we'd expect. So that's sort of where I am with it. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I need a hoodoo practitioner who's a real hoodoo practitioner to look at it and tell me.
Robert Hicks in the comments says, what exactly is the difference between voodoo and hoodoo? I know they are different, but not know how. So I don't profess that I know the exact differences, except with the fact that voodoo is a closed religion. You have to be initiated into it. You have to be taught by people who practice it. Hoodoo is a little bit more intention magic, and it is a little bit more encompassing. It allows a little bit more. You can learn it and not you're not encroaching upon religion. I think that's
hoodoo,
correct. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, hoodoo's a magical practice. It's
Right.
not a religious practice. There have been people who are Christians who practiced hoodoo for centuries and whatever else. But voodoo is very much a religious practice. Yeah. They do have similar origins in that they're both from Africa, and they were both, first practiced by people who were brought here as slaves. But they're different in that sense. Mm-hmm. And I think Heather's right, though. There's a lot of stereotyping. It's hoodoo and voodoo are always bad in movies. And while there's some differentiation in this film between hoodoo and voodoo, still the idea that you're using magic in this way is bad. Even though I would again say the antagonists, they had some justification for some of what they were doing.
They absolutely
did. Mm-hmm. And that's a question I have, which the movie sort of touches on, because the woman who tells the story of what happened to these two people, in the end, after the twist, we say maybe that story that was told didn't really happen, but if it did happen, they absolutely had justification. And even if it was another story based on history, they still would have justification. And getting back to the question of hoodoo versus voodoo, voodoo is very much an African tradition religion that is here, just like you guys said, and it is a closed practice, and it is based in New Orleans. There are other ATRs as well. Hoodoo is a magical practice, like Jason said, and I have a book that I just hold up in case anyone had that question. This would be a good source. This is 365 Days of Hoodoo. This will give you a sense. This is by Stephanie Rose Bird. She is a practitioner. Some people feel that hoodoo is also a closed magical practice, not a religion, but a closed magical practice, and that only people, either Black folk or people of color, can practice it. Other people will say it is open. So it's really, that's a contention point, I think, in and amongst the hoodoo community and hoodoo practitioners. I have just worked on a book that's coming out in the spring called Llewellyn's Complete Book of North American Folk Magic. And there's about 5 different people in that book that do essays on hoodoo, voodoo, and other types. And they really get into the stuff. So if you're interested in it, look for that book this summer, because it'll give you a full range of practices, because it's practiced all over the country, hoodoo, whereas voodoo is more concentrated in New Orleans. And I think that, to really get a sense of what these are, you have to talk to practitioners themselves, and none of us are. So I'm a big believer in that. Talk to the people who practice it on the specifics. But it's fascinating because Hollywood has done such a poor job in presenting the. Although you know what, there's a good practice of hoodoo. A good representation of hoodoo is, and this is crazy, The Witches 2020. Watch the new version of The Witches. It came out in 2020. And the witch character in there is a hoodoo practitioner, and she's the grandma, and she saves them with hoodoo. And that's a really positive representation of hoodoo. So,
is that something we should discuss on the show soon?
I think so.
We could watch The Witches, the old one and the new one, and discuss them.
If I have to rewatch that new one, though, oh wow,
the old one's worse.
Oh, I didn't even think that could be possible, Heather.
Have you not seen the old one from, what is it, 94, 93?
No,
it's terrible.
No.
I like the new one better, actually, but that's okay. They're bad.
A rough week of movie watching.
Let me just say, Jason.
I'm sorry.
Ahead, Richard. No, I was going to just say to Jason, the writer of the movie, the writer of the book, what's his face, agreed with you entirely. Yes, Roald Dahl. He hated the original movie from the 90s and said he would never, ever have anyone do one of his books as a movie ever again after the original Witches. So he agreed.
I love Roald Dahl, and I loved The Witches. I loved the 1994 one. I loved it so much. I loved it. I did not love the character at the end that made things all better, the sort of witch who repents. But Angelica Houston as the Grand High Witch, oh my God.
Of course.
Ms. Ernst, I love her. I love her. In fact, I did a stage show where I played the evil queen, and I based it off of Angelica Houston as the Grand High Witch. So, very special place in my heart. I love it. Children smell like dogs' droppings.
I mean, they do. They really do.
Okay, let's say what Laura wrote. Sorry, we're reading as we go all your comments. We're not commenting on them, but we're super appreciating them, and we'll get to them as we can. We love your input here, everybody in the chat room. And there just was one from Lara, and it went away. In American Horror Story, they really cross witches and voodoo. I'm not sure how accurately it was all portrayed, but the show based its content on semi-factual things. Anybody have any knowledge about that? What they did with American Horror Story? I don't.
I have to go back and watch it, but it is that's sort of what's the word I'm looking for? That's sort of a coming together of the Salem witchcraft lore and New Orleans witchcraft, and magical. I'll say magic there. So that's what they're really doing, the conflict, and they're dealing with a lot of racial conflict as well as other things, social stuff. So there's a lot going on in American Horror Story. We could do a whole show on that.
I love American Horror Story.
Yeah. I assume one day we'll do American Horror Story Coven, but I will say, as someone who reveres Marie Laveau quite a bit, what they did to Marie Laveau in that TV show was horrific, because they made her a baby snatcher in order to preserve her youth, which, if you know anything about the historical personage of Marie Laveau, that is absolutely something she would not have done. And she was a real person. To see someone make that implication, I thought was really disgusting. Though there are other things about that particular season of American Horror Story that can be fun. But when I saw that, I probably never let it go, the other 8 episodes.
Stevie Nicks. That's all I could say.
Yeah. Of course.
My girl. Yeah. All right. What else are we looking at? Yes. She's basically preserved her community. Yeah. So yeah. And I think that's it. I don't know if it's something we ever want to talk about, reality and not reality, when movies and film cross the line, whether it's a movie about Elvis or a movie about Marie Laveau or things. I don't even know how to talk about it, but to me, it's really interesting. Like, did John F. Kennedy do that? I mean,
yeah, you can't ever take.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's a really good point, because we sort of lose we make a lot of progress. It's wonderful. But I think that we as a whole, we should understand, we should read, we should know a little bit more about these characters. One of my things is in Amadeus. It's not witch. It's nothing to do about witches. But with Amadeus Mozart, there is no way that he would have behaved like that in front of the Duke. There's there's things like that drive me crazy. Also, on a side note, many years ago, I was on a show where I was cast as Charlie Chaplin. Now I'm nearing 5 foot. I'm almost 6 foot. I'm 5'11", and I'm tall. And anyway, so I stopped off to get tea in the morning, and the fellow behind the counter says, "Dude, why are you dressed like Edgar Allan Poe?" So, people lose things they don't really know. So it is good that we do our own research and figure out what the real life person would have done.
Right.
I think sorry, go ahead, Patty.
No, I just think in our culture, all of a sudden, if it's a fiction, it's fiction. But all of a sudden, if we give a real name of a real person, and we're used to news and we're used to documentaries, and I think a lot of people, present company excluded, I think that that's what it was. It becomes a new fact.
Well, I think
that's what I was just kind of going to say. Like, I found that I have found myself doing that accidentally before. Like, I love movies so much, so I have to enter them when I go to watch one with that like suspension of disbelief. Like, I have to just take it for what it is. It's a movie and whatever. But then I find that like there's topics that like I don't know a lot about, or that maybe I'm interested in or whatever, and some nugget from the movie will get trapped in my brain somewhere, and I won't remember where I remember it from, but it turns it into a fact somewhere along the line because I haven't done my research about it, because I haven't. So I can see how problematic these things can get because I do it accidentally sometimes. But yeah, I think it's an important thing to, if movies, especially, that are talking about culture, different cultures and whatever else, are using real or based in real things, that, people who watch them enjoy the movie and then do your own research, because it could be pretty problematic.
And that's why Hollywood over the last century has caused problems for witches or for hoodoo practitioners or voodoo practitioners, because a lot of what the representations that we find is specifically, even more so with hoodoo and voodoo but witchcraft as well, are can turn out to be dangerous for actual practitioners, because people believe that what you're seeing in the movie is real. And even when they attempt, like with the craft, to do something that is very Wiccan, they turn the movie with Manon at the end, and it's like, oh yeah, I know what witches do. They do this. And we have wind up with a satanic panic. Or in the case of hoodoo and voodoo, they used hoodoo and voodoo, or the fear of it, to marginalize and to other people of color in the movies. It was very much attributed. And I talk about that in the book, throughout the book. I think there's at least a section in each chapter where that comes into play. And you see that happening over and over again. So you have to, it's nice to see the fantasy, but you got to know it's fantasy. Oh, there's some reality there. Okay, that's great. But it's nice to see the real stuff too. Actually, every time I do a talk on this, I always get the question, well, when are they going to do a movie that's really about us, that looks like us, that's about us? And I say, here's the truth. They're not, because we're boring. Our lives are not that exciting. They don't do real movies about doctors. They don't do real movies about anyone. That's what Hollywood does.
Having said
Richard-Lael.
I think the truest film that has ever been about witches in the way that I practice is The Addams Family in 1991 and Addams Family Values.
Why am I not surprised?
I'm not surprised.
I practice magic is my own sort of.
I think the closest one to my family look would be The Last Keepers, if I was to pick one. It's fantasy, there's obviously a fantasy part, but The Last Keepers really feels The Last Keepers, or if you guys have seen Grace and Frankie, Frankie's character is feels very real to me. She's
say
like the
that
best
all the
witch,
time.
right? Or The Last Keepers feels more like what my family is like, and so that's kind of the closest I can get. So Frankie, I love her.
It's good.
Before I'm gonna be when I grow up.
Right.
Before they slip by, oops.
Mhm.
Before they
Sorry,
slip
go
by, I
ahead.
want to comment. Corey asked about Heather, the name of your book, because she'd like to buy your book, and otherwise it'll slide down, and then I will forget.
Ooh, there it is. Lights, Camera, Witchcraft.
And also, Corey mentioned about the monetization. We just showed, our producer Rob just showed pictures of Marie Laveau and her grave. And I guess, have they monetized the graveyard where Maria's held or something like that? I don't know.
To go to the graveyard where Marie Laveau is buried, or allegedly buried, depending on who you ask, you do have to go in with a tour guide. And it's not really to make money. It's because the tomb has been vandalized several times. A few years ago, it was painted pink with like a vinyl kind of paint, and it almost could have like totally ruined the structure forever. So now it's hard to get into unless you're with a guide. There's just no way, unless you have somebody buried there in St. Louis Cemetery. But it's not to make money, though. I do think people have tried to monetize Marie Laveau really since the early 1900s, when you see the first grimoires come out that say like Marie Laveau's Book of Magic. She passed, a couple decades before that. But she is also a figure almost like Paul Bunyan at this point, that there's a real person there, and we know some details about her life, but she's also become a figure of folklore. And one of the things that bothers me so much about how she was portrayed in something like American Horror Story is because people don't really know as much about her. It's not like, JFK running off and meeting aliens or something. People are more likely to assume that maybe this is what voodoo practitioners do, because practices like that have been so demonized by Hollywood for the last 120 years.
Very good.
Yeah, I feel like that, what I was talking about earlier about like those little nuggets sticking in my brain and becoming like, I've a long time ago watched, that season of American Horror Story when it came out, and knew tidbits about her but not enough. And that was like, oh, this is the story of her, until, after it was over and I researched it and I realized that's not the case. But like, that's how easy it is. Like, even someone who's like somewhat knowledgeable about it, it was just very easy to get swept up in it and believe that it was true.
I mean, this is true, I think, on us as a generation as a whole anyway. A couple of years ago, I was driving a friend to her place of employment, and in Hollywood, and I was driving Mr. Satan, which is my car, Mr. Satan, and I'm known as a Satanist, and I wear these lovely red shoes because I love them. And internet people, if you know, search out red shoes. It's ridiculous, but anyway, I love them because I love them. And I just so happened this day to have driven her to Hollywood when there was a march going on down Hollywood Boulevard, and one of the signs read, "Hollywood eats babies." And what they meant was, because they think that everyone who lives in Hollywood is a Satanist, and Satanists wear red shoes and kill babies. Because if you wear red shoes, then you can kill babies and the blood doesn't show. And here I am in Mr. Satan in red shoes, a known Satanist, and I'm going,
Do they not understand how blood works? I mean, like, if you got blood drops on your shoes, people would see it, whether it blended in with the shoe color or not.
I feel like I can't
Why the
go
red
to,
shoes?
I feel like I can't go to school to work my day job and listen to Pete the Cat in his red shoes in the same way ever again.
Well, it's probably written by Hollywood liberal elites to indoctrinate children.
And yeah,
Oh no, someone's going to quote me on this, and it's going to be on some sort of weird, like, Christian podcast video now. So I'm really sorry I said that.
Yeah. No, I know, and I've seen those people on Hollywood Boulevard. It's sad. It's just sad and scary. Mostly scary.
mostly scary.
Yeah.
And I mean, and to be fair, I've said this before, I am a Satanist and I love children. I can just never finish a whole one.
Who can? Really?
Oh, I know. I guess people, maybe because they don't have exciting lives. You say that we don't have exciting lives, Heather. I beg to differ. but yeah, they probably are not going to write a movie about me.
No.
But I guess maybe the world just wants to make. Isn't there some kind of a psychological truth that the weirder things get, the weirder stories get? Like the Illuminati is going to get weirder and weirder. How Tom Hanks is our baby eating leader, and
Patti,
like Tom Hanks.
you weren't supposed
Did
to,
I give away a
don't tell
secret?
anybody that. Yeah.
I don't think it's a matter of. I don't think it's a matter of your life not being exciting. I think we all have, enjoy our lives and stuff, but they don't necessarily make good Hollywood stories. And and I think your life, for example, or the life of one of us as witches, or a bunch of us as witches, could make a fantastic documentary if done properly and respectfully. I think that's the answer, because there's some fantastic, very, very well done documentaries out there. Have there been any on witches and hoodoo? There have been some, but that's where we'd see the real stuff. Hollywood needs a story. It needs to have a narrative. It needs certain things that just trying to be realistic in and of itself the way people expect is not going to work. Just like when you see a show about the hospital, a TV show, a movie, this is not reality. This is meant as entertainment. This is tales of old. This is sitting around the campfire entertaining you. It's entertainment, and there needs to be some things in it that don't exist in real life.
Are you telling me that Grey's Anatomy is not a documentary?
Jason, are you sitting down?
I feel like I've been lied to for the last 30 years of my life.
Well, Jason, you already kicked me out of your club for not liking your last movies, so I think I will tell you it is not. I am so sorry.
Oh,
Since
man.
you already kicked me out, I'll be the one to tell you.
I feel like if I ever, when we come back with Scared and Alone, die of fright in an attic somewhere, and it's not Hollywood material, I would like you guys to be on the panel to just make it as sensational as you can and make them make a Hollywood movie about it, and have it be like a witchcraft ritual or something that killed me.
They claim it was a heart attack and that she died of fear, but we all know that a ghost reached into Courtney's ribcage and stopped her heart from beating.
Her doll named Not a Doll.
Stop it!
Her doll. Okay,
yeah, that's the name of the movie, Not a Doll.
Not a doll. Not a doll. Ah.
Well,
Okay, so we figure out who you got to figure out who you want to play you, Courtney.
Oh boy, I don't know.
Okay.
That's a good question. I'll think about it.
Get back to us next week.
Yeah. Not a doll.
Not a doll.
Title. No, just not.
Not the not a doll cannot play me. No.
Okay. Oh, okay. But again, I think what's hopefully will come is that, again, if there's a pendulum swing, it doesn't have to be. Even it doesn't. Though we all love horror movies and we all love stuff. It just would like more and more just regular TV, regular drama, regular comedy where somebody's just a witch. Yeah, it doesn't have to be the plot point.
And they do exist. There was All Cheerleaders Must Die. Just we can leave that one alone right there. It's not a good movie, but there was just a witch in it. It wasn't about that, sort of. And we do see, but like Frankie, that was what was so beautiful about Grace and Frankie, is that, like you just said, exactly. It was not the point of the movie. She just was, which she was so fantastic. But besides that, I know, right? And so that is what we need to see, like you said. And that was very realistic. So I love that idea.
Me too. So everybody out there, I guess, is there anything else we want to say about this movie? Or are we getting ready for wands up and wands
I'm ready
down
for
on
wands.
the skeleton key? All right. So, and everybody listening out there, goodbye to go eat your hot wings, Corey. But if you want to do wands up or wands down, everybody, you see the skeleton key. So, all right, wands up, wands down. Wands up, wands up. We are across this may be almost a first for us. I'm not sure of us here on screen. Wands up, wands down. So
there's a key up too.
A key up. Oh, it's a
Or is that a key?
skeleton key up.
Oh.
It's a skeleton key.
Oh, wait, is
Oh
that
my
down?
God. We are so slow. Or is it key down? Is that key
No,
up?
it's key up. It is key up.
Okay.
I don't know which way is up. It doesn't matter, but it's up. It's definitely. I don't know
Okay.
which way it is, but it's a skeleton key and it's up.
And isn't that interesting? How keys in itself makes it scary before we even get there. Because I mean, we use keys in witchcraft. We have goddess Akadi. We use keys in lots of things. So keys themselves are almost like in life a sort of character themselves too, aren't they? A PowerPoint.
Well, and you know, Patti, that is true because I will tell you, I carry. This is on my desk, but I carry one on my person. I have another skeleton key that I carry. And I carry it. It helps me to focus my intention. It helps me to say, okay, I can get out of these situations. And according to legend, if you are given a key from a friend to be worn around the neck, it's supposed to help open the doors of your life. And 3 keys worn on a red string is supposed to make you healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Next week we are all going to have 3 keys on a red.
I'll stick with
our
the
black,
skeleton.
what if our Black Phillips all had 3 keys on a red string? Well, they
Ooh.
will then therefore be healthy, wealthy, and wise. So anyway, we've got we got ones up from Tabitha, hot wings from Corey, and that's all the votes so far. But it looks like across the board here, you guys in the chat room, tell us what you want us to talk about. Do we want to talk about what we want to talk about next week? Movies wise, and again, we are opening it up to television shows and perhaps even Broadway. We'll see. John wants to watch a movie. Watch the movie again, John. I bet you the next time, like I didn't remember that first time at all, except for the ending. But I think if I watch it again in the near future, I'd get a lot more even the little nuances.
Yeah, I think I will definitely watch it again.
I think with all the talk about dolls and stuff, we really need to watch Annabelle soon, just because I want to see how
boy.
Courtney reacts to it.
I've met the real Annabelle. I have met her, and I just heard a noise next to me. Oh my God! I think I'm not even kidding. I think the not at all settled on the. I'm scared and alone in my own house.
You guys, wait till you see her scared face. I mean, it's worth watching.
She's
Scared
so
alone just for that.
adorable.
It's not funny. I have to keep it on my desk now.
Speaking of dolls, though, I wanted to show you. So last week I showed you my friend gave me a doll for my birthday, this little devil doll, and he was naked. And I wanted to show you that I sewed him a new outfit.
Very nice.
Beautiful.
He looks dressed for Mardi Gras.
Yes.
He's very Mardi Gras. And then he's got this lovely wool cape because, you know, he's the devil and he gets cold in hell.
All right. Well, Belle's going to get really mad if I don't show Belle. If you're showing your Satan doll, you're not. And we've got Belle wanted to say hi. And this is Belle, my 105-year-old haunted doll from a girl in Belgium who sent her to me because she saw me doing a seance with Peggy the doll, who's very haunted and gives people heart attacks. 2 people heart attacks, and she thought I could handle her. But I want to show how beautiful in this dress. Somebody made this beautiful dress. Another friend made this cape, and these beautiful 100-year-old shoes are from Richard-Lael. He bought her these beautiful vintage 100-year-old shoes to go to the 100-year-old doll. But I just had to bring her out because a lot of times people watch her. I have to keep her way back there because she takes focus from me. People see her eyes moving. People see her expression change all the time. Thank you, Alicia. But yeah, a beautiful girl in England built her this beautiful Victorian dress. Another friend, she and I have matching cloaks, and then the beautiful shoes from Richard-Lael. So that's my baby girl, my baby Belle. So okay, we're gonna just do a doll thing on shows now, just for Courtney. She loves you, Courtney. Belle loves you.
The way I'm gonna cry.
Heart attacks. She gives people heart attacks. Or she used
My
to.
heart is racing. Apparently, no, Heather. I just put a heart monitor.
She's pulling my earring. Oh, look at Heather's. Oh, is that one of your new babies that you just?
Yeah, this is one of the ones I've brought in. Yeah, she's one of the dolls that I restored. So she's not as old as yours. She's only about 30 years old. So she's not ready. She's not been inspirited yet. We're waiting.
She's beautiful.
I'll let
She's
you know,
about
Courtney.
to be. She's about to be because I'm about to die of fright and then enter her apartment.
All right. Well, we only have a couple minutes left. So again, everybody, let's go through and tell everybody where they can find if they want to know more of each of us, your social media or websites or anything you haven't coming up. Anybody want to go first? Courtney?
Sure. You can find me in an early grave after tonight. Just kidding. You can find me doing this anti-Valentine's Day tour from February 10th to the 14th. If you are going to be in Salem or thinking about going to Salem, we're doing a trolley tour. It's new. The anti-Valentine's Day tour we've been doing for about 6 years, but new this year is us on the trolley, and it's stories of love gone wrong in Salem. Basically, if you get married or fall in love, you're going to get murdered, and we're going to tell you all about it. I'm wearing a dress, which is interesting, and my new cloak that I bought, and I will be being a co-tour guide on all of those nights, so you can come and see me in person and listen to me tell my wonderful tales of, why it's good to be single. And if you want to find me online, I am at the Themes on all the various social medias. Twitch, if you want to watch me play scary games and make my scared face. Instagram, if you want to keep up on the travels of Black Phillip. And I think he did, is a picture of the Not a Doll on there. Maybe there'll be more. Or TikTok or whatever else at the Themes. And of course, you can watch me as Ghostbait on scarednolan.com down there.
Perfect.
On
All
Scared
right. Richard-Lael.
So I am found where any good gentleman psychics are sold. So you can find me on thegentlemanpsychic.com. That's the best place. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on the YouTubes, all medias of social. I don't really have too awfully much going on. I have some things that are secret that I can't really talk about, but I've got some things that are coming up. I always readings, always if you're looking for art, I do that too once in a while. I'm okay, it's what I do. Anyway, that's me.
Thank you very much. Okay, Jason.
I'm Jason Mankey, often at Pan Mankey on social medias. February 23rd through 26th, I'll be in Detroit at the Convocation Festival, and the following weekend I will be visiting Texas for the first time at the Austin Witch Fest. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh, you know what, though? I have to tell you, though, Jason, there's only two things that come from Texas. Steers and all my exes live in Texas. I was going to say something else because that's where your mind goes.
Thank you very much. All right, and Heather.
Well, you can find me on my website, heathergreene.net, and that's where it's the easiest way to find me on all the socials, Twitter, Facebook, all the things. I will be doing some things live and in person, attending some events in March and April, but I will share those as soon as everything's planned definitively. Right now, I don't have those plans, but I know I will be at a pagan conference in April, definitely. And of course, the big Atlanta one in July, but I will bring those up as they come up. Over the next couple months, I'm going to be just working on people's wonderful manuscripts and books, which is what I do. And also I write articles. So please look out for a lot of my articles. I cover witchcraft, occult, and all the good things. I'm a freelancer that way. A lot of my articles right now, I'm working on some good ones. I'll surprise you. But I did a tarot one that was up a couple weeks ago on Religion News Service. You can find the links on my website. But if you want to follow my news stories, definitely check it out. And I post them usually on Twitter and stuff too. You can see what's going on in the witch world and the occult world I get those articles on mainstream, which is really great. So I get to share what we're all doing with a bigger audience, which is nice.
That's awesome. That's what we need. That's what we need. Get out within ourselves is great.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm Patti Negri. Again, pattinegri.com is where you can find all my different socials and my correct socials. Patti.Negri on Instagram, Patti Negri Psychic Medium on Facebook, Patti Negri on Twitter. They're all verified now. So if it doesn't have a blue check, it's not me. Though my personal Facebook doesn't have they don't check those. I have some things coming up too. that public can go to, starting, I think, Darkwater Cruise in March out of the Caribbean. I have Spirits in the spring. I just booked Massachusetts, all sorts of other things too. So you guys like us and follow us. That we just have to do this. It really makes a world. Find our social medias, sign up for any newsletters we have, follow us. You need a reading, call one of us, or whatever it is that we do. We've got a manuscript, send it. No, don't send it to Heather. Don't do it.
I mean, a message first, please.
Yeah, a message first. If you have a doll that's really haunted, send it to Courtney.
Well, but if you do want to deck yourself out in in Witches Movie Coven gear like I do, this is my Witches Movie Coven hooded blanket and my t-shirt here.
Oh,
with Black Phillip on it.
The t-shirt.
Oh yeah, this is the t-shirt.
Mysterycontrol.com.
Yep.
Mysterycontrol.com. And we could all have that beautiful cloaky, blanky masterpiece. And one day we're going to have to sell Black Phillip on it too. We need a Witches Movie Coven. He needs his own little t-shirt. Yeah, or a doll.
And if anyone wants to buy my not a doll and get it out of my house, I will.
No. So anyway, it is 7:00, well, or 10:00, depending on where you are, or somewhere in the middle. But we have one more thing to do before we all go, and we want everybody to join in with us. What do witches do? We cackle. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! We're the Witches Movie Coven, and you're a member. See you next week.